The next frontier of tech, what do you think is next?
So there are really two specific trends that I think that I'm really paying the most attention to, that I think are potentially going to revolutionize the way business is done in society. One somewhat obvious, which is the wearable tech phase that we're kind of coming into here. And, you know, I largely would expect, maybe I'm wrong, but the iWatch and things like that in and of themselves are not going to be that successful. Because these are the really early stage products. These are the ones that are just trying to play with things a little bit and figure out what's going to work. They aren't really all that likely to be successful, and I think some of the firms even know this. They're doing it as an experiment to try to figure out the ways that consumers will interact with these things. But this is a big investment in trying to figure out, what do people really want? How do people want to interact with technology? And if we try these crazy things like Google Glass, will people like it or will they not like it? All right, maybe we're not ready for that, or we haven't figured out how to do that. Maybe the iWatch is a little more acceptable, even if it's a little less cool what it can do in some ways. And that's a step, and we have to figure out how to do that. But certainly, you know, we've moved to this point that we're all carrying around computers in our pocket, right? And we use them all the time on a regular basis. But the idea that we have to pull it out and look at it and interact with it in some sort of a physical way in order to get what we want out of it seems incredibly inefficient if we think about where we're going to be headed long term. And so whether it's glasses or pants or shirts or watches or implants or who knows what that's out there, this is a path we're clearly going down in some way. And how that trend evolves and changes, and where consumers do and don't respond well to it, and where the technology kind of has breakthroughs, is going to be a fascinating place to look at. The other one we certainly talk about, but I don't think people think nearly enough about how it's going to change the nature of society and everything going on. And this is 3D printing. 3D printing is fascinating. And in the short term, we're mostly talking about it for building little curiosities and things like that out of plastics. Firms are making real use out of it for prototyping in ways that they really couldn't do before, to construct prototypes in very quickly and redo them and rework them in ways that allows for a lot of insight into the product development process. But, you know, we start moving into things like creating replacement parts in manufacturing settings, where you can just print a new widget or whatever it is that you need to make your machines run. We think about entire industries that can be completely converted to, you know, instead of mass producing these things and shipping them out, can be totally done by 3D printing. I mean, you got to think Lego's sitting here terrified over how this is going to revolutionize the little plastic block industry, because we can just print our own at some point in time at home. And then it's all about the intellectual property that they're going to create and come up with these designs that drives things, not the plastic, because that's relatively easy. And if we start getting into these experimental pieces around things that are food related and things like that,
that's so hard to wrap my head around.
It really is. And it's like you first see these headlines and you're like, how is that possible? But then you start thinking about, you know, all of the replicators and things that have been in sci-fi TV shows for a long time, and you start seeing that we've been thinking about this. We just weren't quite sure how it was going to work. But this might be it, right? This might be the way in which we completely change the nature of what you do in your house, right? You don't go to the store to buy stuff, you print it. You don't buy your food and ingredients, you print them. Maybe there's still going to be investments in cooking and cuisine and all that stuff, but the raw materials, maybe instead of growing it and things like that nearby or going to the store to buy it, the organic material is grown separately, and it's printed and formed into the way you want to use it in your house at that point. And that totally changes manufacturing, it totally changes farming, it totally changes product development. All these processes that could be radically transformed in across a number of industries. It's going to take time, even more time than the wearable tech trends is going to take. But if we're thinking about the stuff that's going on out there right now that I think is really cool and has a huge potential to completely change industries, those would be the two that I would focus on the most.